There is a theory that says that it is normal to be annoying to your crush. But, at least from Akiteru Ooboshi's perspective, this theory is completely false. Thinking logically, it makes much more sense to be nice to someone you have feelings for. He is a strong believer in efficiency, and it is much more efficient and logical to fight for a love, being nice and cute, rather than annoying and mean. Akiteru comes home and hears music playing at the highest volume inside his room, and a song with lyrics not at all appropriate for a teenager to listen to. The person responsible for the song is Iroha Kohinata, and Akiteru already enters the room unplugging the stereo and cursing the girl because of the loud noise, saying that she will disturb the neighbors. Iroha complains that he should knock on other people's door before entering, but that is his room. Iroha loves to spend time teasing the boy, but he couldn't care less about her. She says she thinks he wanted to see her changing in his room and jokes that she will call the police, but Akiteru retorts because she's the one who is breaking into his house. However, his house key hangs on the girl's necklace, in a very intimate area. Akiteru asks her to leave, because that's not what he gave her a key for. She complains because this is no way to treat a younger sister. In fact, Iroha is the younger sister of Akiteru's best friend, but that doesn't mean anything to him. The girl is basically a stranger. While they are still arguing, Akiteru receives an important call. Iroha promises that we should keep quiet, but of course she will not keep her promise. The call is from President Tsukinamori of Honey Place Works, a large entertainment company. He is also Akiteru's uncle and is calling to talk about the boy's job application. Akiteru sent the application without even having taken the company's exam, which showed his uncle that he knows nothing about what it takes to succeed in society. Akiteru thinks that's a no, but the uncle is willing to do his adorable nephew a favor. However, he will have to accept certain terms. First, his uncle asks if Akiteru has a girlfriend. Iroha's neurons activate immediately, and she teases the boy again, because it's fun for her to think that he would be in a bad situation if his uncle found out that he is with a girl in his room. Akiteru manages to trick his uncle by saying that he adopted a cat, because Iroha is literally clinging to the boy and meowing in his ear. The uncle is glad he doesn't have a girlfriend, and hangs up the phone to go to a meeting. When the call ends, Akiteru scolds the girl, because she almost ruined everything, but Iroha doesn't care, and leaves the room to have a drink. At school, Akiteru reflects on how short life is. Every breath brings us one step closer to death. Teenagers nowadays don't have any worries, but Akiteru uses his limited time efficiently. He cannot waste a single minute if he wants to guarantee his future. And it seems that the boy is practically invisible at school, because when a classmate who sits in front of him drops his eraser, he gets startled when he hears Akiteru call him. Akiteru's best friend Ozuma, Iroha's brother, arrives at school dying of sleep, and Akiteru gives him some notes. He thanks him and says that he needs to make it up to him later, because he's always depending on Aki. The boy says that everything he does is calculated, and Ozuma thanks Aki for including him and the others in his calculations. He asks if his sister has come to Aki's house again, and says that maybe she likes him. He thinks it's impossible, because the girl is always bothering him, and he's just an average guy. There's no reason for her to like him. If Iroha really had feelings for him, she would have no reason to annoy him and risk him hating her. But Ozuma says that's not how girls' minds work. But their conversation ends when Sumire Kageishi, the hot homeroom and math teacher known as the Venomous Queen, enters the room saying that pigs who don't respect her time should take their things and leave immediately, which causes the entire room to get quiet at once. After class, Aki's classmate who lost the eraser comes running to say that there is a hot first year who wants to talk to him, and obviously it's Iroha. But unlike her evil and ironic self in his room, at school she acts like a cute and disciplined girl, which makes Aki even angrier. She says she came there because she wants to live with him, so he asks her to wait and goes to get his things and call Ozuma. But Iroha says she doesn't need her brother because she wants to walk alone with him. Aki asks her to stop making that cute voice and mess with his heart without any intention, but the girl is determined to embarrass him. She wants to know how he can talk to her like that when the two are a couple, and that just yesterday they expressed their love so intensely. Aki doesn't know where to put his face while Iroha continues her little show until Ozuma arrives and she tells him that the two are a couple. Aki can't deal with that in the classroom anymore and pulls Iroha out to try to understand why she's doing that. She knows it would be a problem for him if he had a girlfriend, so she decided that she would become his girlfriend, just to annoy the boy even more. She knows that no one will believe him if he tells them, because she is too hot for him. But as she was the one who made the request, the story will be more convincing. Aki asks her to stop it because it's his future that's at stake. and he doesn't want her to interfere. When Aki tries to leave, Iroha hugs him from behind. She says that he's very dense and does not see that she just wants him to look at her. She knows he's dedicated to his future, but he gets so fixated on something far away that he forgets what's right under his nose. She asks him not to abandon her, because she wants what they have to last forever. Meanwhile, Aki's heart starts beating very fast, because he doesn't understand why Iroha is saying all that. But, as expected, it was all a joke. She just wanted to try to do an authentic confession scene once in her life, and see Aki get all red and embarrassed. And, since he doesn't even see her as a girl, she thought this would be a great opportunity. She thinks that Aki is so embarrassed that he blushed, but the truth is that he turned red with anger. He yells at the girl, saying that he will never believe a word she says again, because she's a horrible girl, and Iroha runs away before something worse happens. At night, Aki goes to a restaurant to meet his uncle, and thanks him for taking the time to talk to him. The uncle says he came with someone else, but first he wants to talk to Aki alone. He was impressed, because he didn't know that Aki had developed and released the game on his own, but Aki says it was all a team effort. The production team is called the Fifth Floor Alliance. The programmer is Ozuma, known as Oz. The illustrator is called Shikibu Murasaki. The scenario developer is Namako Makigai. The mysterious voice actress is known as Brigade X. And the producer and director is Aki himself. The uncle says that their game is being very well talked about in the industry, because it was made by a mysterious team that appeared out of nowhere, created a reputation just by word of mouth, and has already achieved more than 1 million downloads. Aki knows that he still hasn't come close to HPW's games, which get more than 10 million downloads. But his uncle says that he can't compare himself to a big company, and he himself doesn't know if he could do what Aki's team did when he was in school. Before the two of them start discussing the terms of the contract, his uncle wants to order the food. Aki wonders what his uncle's terms will be and thinks about who the third person would be, but he's happy to have brought a proposal. As the uncle orders, he starts flirting with the waitress, and Aki says that he went too far. The uncle says that you should say what you feel if you want the person to know, and it seems to have worked, because the waitress was quite embarrassed. Aki started acting natural and losing his suck-up side, so he decides to go to the bathroom to cool his head. But when he opens the bathroom door, he finds a girl inside. The girl is startled when she comes face to face with Aki and punches him in the stomach. Meanwhile, Iroha is in a studio with a friend, and she is bored because Aki isn't there and there is no one for her to disturb. The friend asks her what is going on between the two of them, but Iroha says that nothing ever happens. Back at the restaurant, the girl Aki found in the bathroom is actually his uncle's daughter, namely his cousin, Mashiro. The two of them always played together as children, but Aki didn't recognize her right away. His uncle says that he brought her along because his condition for hiring the Fifth Floor Alliance is that Akiteru becomes Mashiro's fake boyfriend until she graduates. Mashiro is annoyed with her father and doesn't understand it, but he retorts, saying that he has already accepted her request to transfer from an elite school for girls to a co-ed school, and it broke his heart. So, he has the right to get her a bodyguard to prevent perverted boys from approaching her. Aki wants to know why she's transferring to his school, and his uncle tells him that she was practically not going to her old school. The explanation for this is long, but Aki says he doesn't need to listen. Mashiro decided to stop going to school because of something, and wanted to change, and that's enough information for him. And, as this condition was non-negotiable for the hiring of his team, Aki accepts. Mashiro says that, as long as it's all fake, she accepts it too. Aki tries to shake her hand, but she slaps his hand and tells him not to try to be her friend, because it won't work. His uncle thinks the two of them will get along super well, but he gives Aki a warning. His relationship with Mashiro will be totally fake. If he tries anything with his daughter, he will suffer the consequences. But, since Mashiro apparently hates him, he won't even want to get too close anyway. The story that a girl who is cold and difficult actually has feelings for you is obviously a lie, which makes Aki wonder why he's always surrounded by trouble girls anyway. Aki gets to school and is greeted by Iroha, who realizes that he's hiding something. She asks if it's about HPW, but he says it's none of her business. When he gets to class, the teacher walks in with Mashiro, and she introduces herself to everyone, but she's really nervous. She also says that she's going out with Aki, and the whole class is in disbelief of a babe like her wasting her time with him. Suzuki asks Mashiro where she met Aki, and she panics and says they met in the bathroom, which technically is not wrong, but they knew each other since they were kids. When she sits down, Aki wants them to try and make that agreement work, but Mashiro tells him to shut up because she hasn't forgiven him for what happened before. Aki thinks that this will not work this way, but Mashiro says that they only need to keep their story straight and no one will bat an eye. Ozuma asks Aki why he kept that a secret, but he realizes it has to do with HPW, and Aki promises to explain everything later. He explains it all over lunch break, because Oz is the programmer of the Fifth Floor Alliance, so he deserves to know. He says that Aki is like the protagonist of a rom-com. He even has a little sister with a brother complex to mess with him. Ozuma insists that Iroha is in love with Aki, but he cannot see how that is true. When Oz leaves to buy lunch, Suzuki comes to ask how Aki has a girlfriend when he is always getting friendly with Iroha, and Mashiro stands up with an angry look at him. He explains that Iroha is just Ozuma's little sister, and there is nothing going on between them. He wants to make Suzuki go away and mentions that teacher Kageshi prefers macho guys, because the boy has his sights on her. When he is alone again, Mashiro is still glaring at him, and she orders him to buy her some rice balls. He doesn't want to be her errand boy, but she threatens to call the whole fake dating thing off, so he has no choice but obey. He comes back with her lunch and eats his own, while wondering if Mashiro was jealous after hearing about Iroha, but she hates his guts, so that's not what's happening. Kakeshi bursts into the room and asks about their homework. When one student says he forgot, she starts yelling that functional adults must have some qualities, like keep their promises, be strict with themselves, and report an error to their superiors. Those who fail to meet that are less than scum. And she tells the guy that there won't be a next time. Aki looks at Mashiro and she's already terrified of the hot teacher. When class is over, Kakeshi asks Aki to go to the student counseling office during his break because she wants to discuss an assignment with him. The other guys don't know how Aki can be so calm after hearing that, but he doesn't seem to mind. When he goes to the student counseling office, the place looks more like a villain's dungeon. It's located underground, it has a steel door, and it's full of torture instruments, but he gets inside without a care in the world. He sits down and Kakeshi asks if he was eager to hasten his end. Then, out of nowhere, she kneels before him and asks for forgiveness. Aki actually went there as soon as possible because he wanted to hasten her end. She keeps apologizing because he had a murderous look in his face, but preparing the exams for the class was taking forever. The truth was that Sumire Kakeshi was also known as Shikibu Murasaki, the illustrator of the Fifth Floor Alliance, who never met her deadlines. During class, as the venomous queen, she would say things like, keep your promises, be strict to yourself, etc. But this was just her character as a teacher. Outside the classroom, she was a completely different person. Aki asks her how much she had done, but she shows him a blank page, which makes him want to torture her in every way possible. She says she was having an artist's block, and she didn't tell Aki because that would ruin her cool image. And then Aki tortures her again. Aki found out that she was an artist when he went to a manga convention to look for illustrators. He saw one of her comics and realized that she was the perfect degenerate to draw his characters. And when he saw that the woman responsible for those barely legal drawings was actually his teacher, who even lived in the same building as him, he found the perfect opportunity to use her situation to get her to work for him on his terms. She says that the artist's block was real, and Aki tells her they should sleep on it. But the horny teacher replies that she only goes for boys younger than 15, and Aki almost calls the police on her. He extends her deadline and is about to leave when Sumire gets serious. She wants to talk about Mashiro, and Aki tells her everything that happened in his meeting with his uncle. Sumire reveals that the reason for Mashiro not going to her previous school was because she was being bullied over something that her classmates found about her, but she doesn't know what it is. She wants Mashiro to enjoy going to school and asks Aki to take care of her. When the school day ends, Aki asks Mashiro if she wants to go home together, but she tells him not to talk to her. Their classmates hear everything and think that she's just shy and doesn't like public displays of affection. And the girl gets so embarrassed that she runs away from there. Aki tells Oz that he wants to look after her, but he needs at least for her to see him as a friend. He asks for Oz's help, but he's clueless, because the girl already hates Aki, so it's going to be hard to change her opinion towards him. He's getting ready to walk home alone, because Oz has an errand to run, when Iroha comes up behind him and drops her big melons on his head. He gets pissed the minute he hears her voice, and tells her to get her big pokeballs off of him, but she says she wanted to visit him because he was all alone. She asks him if he really wants her to get off of him, because maybe he didn't notice, but she wasn't wearing anything underneath her shirt. She says she forgot to put on underwear, and the buttons on her shirt came undone because her balloons were so big. Aki is not sure that she was telling the truth, but he was definitely feeling something soft while she was touching him. He couldn't let go of her because if she was being truthful, he couldn't risk people seeing her bare assets. But he also couldn't risk people seeing them so close together, especially Mashiro, because it would ruin his deal with his uncle. So he lifts her up, and it's Iroha's turn to get embarrassed. He says that this is better than her showing her exposed melons, unless she was lying about that. She was actually telling the truth, so Aki runs away from there with her on his back. He takes a route where no one will see them, because he cultivated the art of choosing the best route from years of playing RPG games. Iroha finally gets too embarrassed and apologizes, so Aki simply lets her fall to the floor. He says that that's what she gets for messing with him, and she is pissed for having taken off her bra for nothing, and Aki realizes that she was telling the truth. On their way home, Aki asks for Iroha's advice on how to make friends with a woman who is a pain in the ass. Iroha thinks that he's in love with someone, but he explains that he just wants to befriend Mashiro so she wouldn't be alone. Iroha says that since he has no clue on how to win a lady's heart, she's going to teach him everything. But Iroha's teachings just turn him into a slave, and he even wears a leash to school. He offers to carry Mashiro's bag, gives her lunch, and even offers to carry her on his back like a horse. Mashiro drags him away from the crowd to ask him what the hell's going on, and he says that it wasn't his plan, and he even thought it would not work. Mashiro asks him if he hates her so much that he decided to do that even though he knew she wouldn't like it. But Aki doesn't have time to explain because Iroha arrives to make things worse. She tells Mashiro that she was the one who came up with that plan and starts teasing them. Mashiro realizes that she was the Kohai who was too close to Aki, and she thinks they did all that just to mess with her. She gets angry and leaves, so Aki has no choice but to go home. When they get home, they realize that Mashiro was their new neighbor. She thinks they are living together, but they explain that Iroha is Ozuma's little sister and they live next to Aki, and Kakeshi lives next to them as well. Mashiro says that they all suck and runs inside her apartment, and she's starting to understand more about the 5th Floor Alliance. Aki doesn't try to stop her or talk to her. Mashiro changed her whole environment in order to start fresh, so he decides that he's going to do everything he possibly can for her.